Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
I actually had a very fantastic experience with a very close friend who is a world-class photographer who I was fortunate that to actually done a couple of projects with him. One in Cuba, the other one in Seychelles for a couple of magazines and projects for a book as well. So I think photography can be absolutely magical if the photographer really understands how the light makes the way that we look through the lens make it magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, he's the old class photographer. Basically, for more than 30 years did not use any digital editing. So he would stay out there. He's the light chaser. So he chases the light.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. So he would sometimes waiting for days and for a perfect shot. And he, of course, thinking those of us who are doing photography like a machine gun, using a camera, like do, and then choose one. No, photography for him, it really is art. I think photography for a lot of us is probably a visual journal, and to record a particular moment that we want to capture and remember.
Right.
But photography done well is absolutely magical.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. So, first of all, Ying Ying Liu. Am I saying your name incorrectly?
Yeah, Ying Ying Liu, yeah.
Ying Ying Liu, okay. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. And we're going to get to know all about you and your really surprising work. And just so I know, I've read it. I've read the organization, read the name a bunch, but I haven't read how to say it. So is it Lumivoce?
Absolutely correct. Yes, it's from Italian. Lumi to illuminate and voce to give it a voice.
No problem. I talk to you now like this for a little while. It's just going to make me laugh. It's okay. Okay, no problem.
Buongiorno.
Hey, buongiorno. It's okay.
My Italian friends will love you.
Okay. Bene, bene. Okay, so let's move on to the first photo, which is normally what I do is I describe the image. And just because it's a podcast, people have to kind of get some kind of anchor. And so in this case, if you don't mind, the one I've chosen was with there's a byline on the image and it says, "We protect what we love," which I believe that quote comes from the diver. What's his name? "We protect what we love" is from... But I forget his name?
No, actually, I think many people actually have the same feeling about this. This is just that myself, I was thinking. And then there's a few different artists also in its variation have the same sentiment.
Sure.
Louis Schwartzberg talked about, we will protect what we fall in love with. And Jane Goodall also talked about in similar lines. I think... and this is something that we have also, it's been our motto really at Lumivoce, because the entire organization is based on this whole idea. We protect what we love. And what we want to do is to inspire people to fall in love with wildlife. As you could see on this photo, is elephant mother with two little babies, and through this in the Havana, in the wooded area, and actually plains, and with beautiful light that shining through, and their trunks are touching with one another, and it definitely shows incredible love.
I agree so much.
And so that's what we want to do at Lumivoce, because I think if we can somehow connect with people's heart, not just their mind, but their heart, and to connect with their emotions, then we can inspire people to fall in love with wildlife, with nature. Only if we can connect and fall in love and start to care, then we will protect.
Mm-hmm.
So really it's about we protect what we love. If you think about Ren, I mean, someone could potentially, hold their family beloved dog but shoot an elephant.
Mm.
So what's the difference between that family dog and that beautiful, majestic elephant? The
Yeah.
only difference is that you have an emotional connection with that dog, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do.
So the image, yeah, just so I can also give a little bit more. You described it, and that was really very elegantly and eloquently said. So the image is, it's like either dawn or just before sundown, and it's an African elephant. So with the light, you can really see the wrinkle, the ridges, the texture. She's chewing on some very, okay, they're in a very kind of dry savanna plain. The plants are clearly, I mean, this is must be close to the end of a dry season. And sure
Yeah.
enough, as you say, there are these two younger elephants who are just gently kind of caressing each other with their trunks and playing. And they're probably like 1 or 2 years old, not even 1 year old, actually, probably about 5 or 6 months. And
Yeah. They're very young.
yeah, they're super young. And what I find really inspiring and touching about elephants is that once you learn about their biology and their lifespans, I mean, an elephant lifespan is like a human lifespan. So like a 2 year old is like a 2 year old elephant is like a 2 year old baby, child, or sorry, toddler. Which is
Yes.
why when they do when they break elephants, then they take like 5 year old elephants and essentially torture them. That's what makes it even more tragic. But
Yes. Can you imagine? I mean, it's really, your heart is broken when you hear that people torn elephants, babies, basically between 2 to 5 years old, they're often torn away from their family.
hmm
And then it's like, can you imagine our human babies that torn away from mother and then taken away, and how the family is, first of all, destroyed.
hmm
Second of all, the baby don't know anything, and you treat them and torture them, make them doing awful things.
hmm
Just because their body is big doesn't mean they're emotionally they're very, very similar to humans.
hmm
They need the family care. In fact, the elephant families, generations, it's very matriarchal. They all stay together and they look after each other's children, aunts and sisters. And I mean, they really very complex family structure, just like human society.
hmm
And they are very compassionate. When I was in Africa, Kenya, to visit, and you can see, I mean, whole herds of elephants, they really care about each other. So if the whole herd cross the street where there are vehicles, the older ones will first come to the road, middle of the road on both
hmm
sides, and they will basically block the traffic, and then waiting for the younger ones to pass through first.
Yeah, yeah.
And they wait patiently until the young ones. And I've also seen them, the whole herd of elephants are ready, after they have drank the water in the water hole or river, they're ready to go. But there are a couple of very naughty little baby
hmm
elephants, and they just didn't want to go. They're not ready yet.
Yeah,
So the whole herd basically wait there
yeah.
patiently.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around, yeah, young elephants and like infant elephants, and yeah, it's very moving and very touching, and it's very powerful. And so the logo for Lumivoce, and let's promote the website lumivoce.org. So it's LUMIVOCE.org.
Yeah.
The logo is of an elephant. Is that a
Yes.
consistent logo?
Yes, it's that is our logo with L and V. So
Mm.
Lumi, and Voce, voce. So to illuminate with sound, with
Wow.
music.
That's
Okay,
just
so L and V, and we had a young designer from Shanghai and did this for us, and it's beautiful. It
mm-hmm.
is an elephant with the nose like a musical note, if you notice that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's our logo. It really, we protect what we love. Really, it's all about developing compassion in the young.
Sorry, just when you said it, and then also thinking about how we met was through Andrea Ritchie, who I had on the podcast talking about Hong Kong Shark Foundation.
Yes.
So we protect what we love. As far as how I've learned it is through Jacques Cousteau, who is the French. And you, as you say, it's been used, and of course it's quite obvious. And but how the person I was thinking about was Jacques Cousteau, the French explorer and diver. But
Yes.
so was Lumivoce born first by elephant conservation, or how did this begin?
That's a good question. Okay, how did I begin? Actually, it took many years. Like everything, you sort of experience life, and then it all come together. I grew up with music. So
Mm.
first of all, I grew up like actually in a cross world of sound and image. My father is a composer, and my mother is an artist, painter. And so I have both sound and image in my world. But music is a very important part of my life. So I grew up studying classical music, and
Mm-hmm.
I went to the West, went to Eastman. I have a doctorate in piano performance and literature from Eastman School of Music.
Wow.
And then I was a professor for 15 years. But what, I love travel. So my husband and I traveled a lot. In the travel, I have to say, I've learned so much. And a couple of things that stood out. One is when we went to Mexico, we were able to go with National Geographic researchers in a small boat,
Oh wow.
and we were able to hear the whales sing. So if I could just play a sound for you. It's incredible. I mean, we heard them at the time in Mexico, in the deep sea, when they put the mic in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really hit me. Like, it's incredible. They communicate. Each whale has a different song, and they are not so different from us. They have their own language. We just don't understand. So that's one thing. And another poignant moment in my travel was meeting those two elephants in Thailand, those two rescued elephants.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked earlier about elephants, how they're so similar to us. But what I was impressed and inspired, really touched, my heart was touched by these two elephants, was those two. They were both drafted when they were babies from the wild and then into the logging industry. Then they were, basically because they're bigger, so they were sent into the forest to pull the logs from the forest.
Mm-hmm.
So they were subject to these heavy labor for decades.
Wow.
So one of them, because of the heavy labor, one they were not letting them rest and continues to work, and her joints were swollen. So instead of letting the elephant rest, of course they're abused to the
Yeah.
elephants, and so they give her a lot of medicine, and to just so that she will keep working.
Mm.
They gave her so many drugs. Eventually her joints were locked up. She cannot bend down any of her joints.
Oh wow.
And that is very difficult because elephants have to lie down to sleep, generally
Oh okay.
speaking. I mean, they can doze off, but they lie down to sleep. And she cannot.
Oh
So
no.
when both of them were rescued, this particular elephant had to stay at the medical ward and to basically, detoxifying
Wow.
all the drugs. But the other elephant can walk free in this elephant nature park in
Yeah.
Thailand.
Yeah.
But she chose to stay by her friend's side 24/7 so that they can lean on each other and rest. I
Wow.
mean, I fed both of them. It was so touching, that compassion
Mm-hmm.
for one another. I mean, they're so intelligent and so compassionate. I think if elephants can display such compassion to one another, I was wondering, what are we capable of as humans? And that's what really got me thinking.
I have this strong conservation ethic, and I gravitate to certain people who are conservationists, and we talk. But I have to say, your approach is I haven't seen it before, and just thinking about it and talking to you and listening to the role of music in your own life and sound in your own life, we already know how much sound is an important part within an elephant's life in terms of communication, in terms of perception and awareness. So maybe you can explain a little bit about how you connect humans, like people, with how we hear, with conservation efforts, with wildlife. Because I have never seen a group that does it in the way that yours does. And Lumivoce seems to be doing some really unique and moving work. So, can you describe a little bit Lumivoce's approach?
Yeah, absolutely. We are deeply rooted in sound and image, but we are mostly coming from the sound area. So if you think about it, in fact, there's a lot of research. One of our collaborators, the Nature Conservancy, their chief scientist, and they actually record a healthy forest sound and a forest that be destroyed, logged off, and the sound spectrum,
Wow.
there's a huge difference. It's like analog versus digital. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, the whole sound spectrum of a healthy forest, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the bandwidth, right? And full of different sounds. But if you thin it out like a digital, then it's like when you cut down certain forests and then all the species are lost, then you don't have that full spectrum anymore. You will have this very thin sound.
Right.
So where we're from, if you think about BBC's Blue Planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Planet, that series, which is incredibly inspiring, they're coming from the visual perspective. A lot of it today, like Louis Schwartzberg, all of these very moving images and videos, the BBC Blue Planet, they are coming from the visual aspect of the art. And then people like Hans Zimmer, that they put this beautiful music to accompany the visuals. Or Lumivoce is the opposite. We're coming from the sound perspective, and then we put images to help people to have that kind of impact. Our very first music conservation video is we recorded a track. I picked a very iconic classical melody, Schubert's Ave Maria.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows this melody, right? La 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 la, ya di da da da. Then I sang without words, just the music alone. And then my producer, arranger, Rob Copeland, had arranged it to actually arrange it with African drums and African instruments so that we mix a very iconic Western classical melody everybody knows, but we recreated it and paired it with the African sounds, indigenous sounds and rhythms, and completely reinvented that music. And then we then have a production company and put all the featured African wildlife,
Wow.
elephants, rhinos, and all the African top 5, and with the sounds of elephants. For instance, if you hear it, we mix the sounds of wildlife. For instance, the elephant trumpet. Let me show you. We have elephant sounds. We have like 30 plus wildlife sounds in there in our track. So this is a new genre.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm going to do, I'll probably cut this out, but what I'll do is I'll fade into that, like a little bits of that track, if it's okay with you, and then probably move on to the next image because I have a
Yeah.
question I'm going to ask later. But let's move on to the next photo because
All right.
is that okay with you?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So the next photo, let me describe it because it's basically somebody taking a snapshot of what looks like a pretty nicely designed poster, and on it are various animals such as the polar bear, blue whale. There are different messages written down like "Save the dwarf seahorse." Underneath the whole thing is the sort of the words "Please help us!" exclamation point. The future of our planet is in our hands, and all of this is drawn where where the hands are drawn as if wrist to wrist and palms are out. So it almost looks like the trunk of a tree. So all of this so far is like a two-dimensional illustration with looks like it could be watercolor or pencil crayon or marker. And then on the illustration paper or the page poster, there's what looks like, I don't know what that is. It looks like little trees. It looks like little trees with pollen, little leaves. Yeah. So what's this image so we can give the a viewer a sense of what we're looking at?
Okay. Well, this to do everything to do with our strategy, basically. So our strategy is through music and the arts and engage and inspire the next generation to get involved creatively. And because I have been in education for a long time, and so we engage with emotions, but we also really want to inspire the young people to actually experience through their own creativity. Then they will understand and fall in love with wildlife. So this image is from our 2020 Voices for the Planet challenge that we have done, and it's drawn by a child.
Oh, wow. This is nice.
So it's a wildlife poster drawn by a child. And as you can see, there's various animals, wildlife around, and this child talked about from the wildlife perspective, putting the trees and the planet and the wildlife in our hands.
Mm-hmm.
And basically from the child's perspective, saying that the future of our planet is in our hands, to taking the responsibility back to us humans of the responsibility that we have, what we do that will impact the way our planet is going to be, the health of our planet and the health of our biodiversity, our wildlife, and the health of our children's future.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I'm very, very proud of these children. We had over 100 wildlife art created by children, by young people, not just children, but young people, all the way from 6-year-old to college students. They created music wildlife video. They created wildlife posters. They also created wildlife stories. When we have given them just images and asked them to write their own stories, or we give them stories and to ask them to illustrate the images in their mind. And this is, I have to say, this is a fantastic way for young children to really getting involved, to learn firsthand by creatively drawing, writing, producing. Then they then own this feeling that they want to protect the wildlife, right? Yeah. It's not just us telling them, preaching to them. I know this is amazing because, for instance, I'll give you an example of someone who had done one of the stories, a third grade child, and said, this is what he said he learned from the exercise. He says, we need to stop poaching immediately so that rhinos and other animals can survive and thrive in the wild. Writing the story about Lucky the rhino based on the illustrations Lumivoce provided was really sad for me. Seeing that someone's mom can die from poaching, it's very sad. I mean, this kind of learning, how it inspired the next generation, it's really amazing.
It really goes down to a deep, deep level. Like, it isn't just knowledge. So it's definitely having these kids sort of internalize whatever actually they discover.
Absolutely. Another young person, a third grade winner for our Voices for the Planet. And he says, by joining this challenge, I have been given a great opportunity to know more about the touching story and knowledges of different kinds of animals. The challenge stirs up my interest in exploring more and more amazing animal story and their lifestyle. It even influences my family, as they like watching the animal documentary recommended by me. I am so glad to see the change happened in my family. So this is the kind of emotional connection I talked earlier, that what we want by linking creativity and inspire the next generation. And the ripple effect of that is amazing, because so this child, he is interested, so he gets his whole entire family interested. How inspiring is that?
It certainly sounds great. As a conservationist myself, I definitely appreciate the perspective and the approach and the power of it. Okay, so sometimes though, it's easy to lose perspective and to feel a little bit defeated. It feels like you're losing ground, right? So just this week, the IUCN said, we saved the European bison from extinction, right? It was really close to extinction, so it was saved, which is great. But 32
other species
were listed as extinct.
Yes.
So it's like, brutal. So for the Voices for the Planet, was there a sound element? So the question I wanted to ask you before, which is quite interesting in terms of, so it becomes almost like a self-reflexive and like a meta question. Okay, you and I are recording a podcast, which is audio, and we're talking about visual elements. Why do you think a podcast, like somebody who's listening to us now, what is the strength of audio over, say, other media in terms of creating that connection inside people's heads, right? So you and I are just talking. We're separated by, I don't even know where in the world you live, but I live in Hong Kong, in Saigon. We're talking over.
I'm in Hong Kong as
Oh, great.
well. Do you still have the sound clips that we sent to
Yes,
you?
yes.
Can you play one of those, please? This is called An Ancient Whisper, which we are featuring the coral reef.
Mm-hmm.
And our star in this is a turtle and the reef, because the reason we feature these critical ecosystems is that this particular reef ecosystem supports 25% of marine life.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the consequences if we lose reefs. Scientists say this is one of the most critical ecosystem we really need to save.
Mm-hmm.
And globally, we're trying to save them. But I want to show through sound how the beauty of this. And so let me just play this a little bit. In the beginning, let me just give you a little bit. It's that we're seeing through the human eyes of this very crowded beach, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
With thousands of people on the beach, very noisy. There are kids going to be playing in the sand and all this stuff, and people swimming in the sea. But then we go into this quiet night when actually people had gone home, and then the turtles trying to come onto the beach and to hatch.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sound under the moon with the swishes of waves. And that's where this track comes from.
Mm-hmm.
La lune blanche luit dans les bois. De chaque branche parle une voix sous la mer.
So beautiful.
Yes, and that's me playing the piano, and we have the orchestra in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was singing. So if you actually, I mean, the time's limited in this podcast, but go on to our website and to our YouTube channel to listen to this in a quiet space.
Mm-hmm.
It is very healing.
Yeah.
Because you will take a deep breath when you hear the sound. And of course, in the middle, we also show how the plastic is really destroying our ocean, and the pollution is destroying our reef. So, and then of course, we want to show the beauty of the reef, of turtles, of all the incredible animals. Coral reefs bleaching are so devastating at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so global scientists are trying to come up with solutions. We take in more than 70-80% of information through light, through images. But sound is life itself. It's a vibration. It's a wave. It goes much deeper, and it connects with your heart very deeply. And that is the emotional connection that Lumivoce is all about.
That's great. I think that was probably, I think you just summed up the podcast most beautifully, and that will probably be the title of this episode, because that was just perfect. let's move on to the next image because if anything, that probably the best way that I think people can connect with Lumivoce at the moment. Is that right?
Yes. So the third image is hear and heal. This is exactly the kind of, the emotional connection. I think people can really connect with Lumivoce and what we do. This is really an answer to the need that we really need now for all the people that are hurting. I think because of COVID, there's just so much pain. Many of us has lost loved ones, and many know someone had lost a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the COVID, there's so much stress, so much pain, and so much concerns with health. Parents are stressed because kids were locked down. So there's just so much pain. And so I have rallied up a group of world-class global musicians to offer a concert, a virtual and free concert for all, to listen to the beauty of music, especially chosen for this purpose, and to heal together. And this is going to be on December 19th. And we have musicians come from the US, come from Brazil, from Hong Kong and Spain. And we have really just sublime music chosen, healing music from Brazil, from China, from Estonia, from Germany, Serbia, Spain, UK, and US, just streamly directly to your home.
Mm-hmm.
And it is free. And this event, it's on Eventbrite. Anybody can register and get a free ticket and then tune in to the YouTube channel.
If I can just let the listener in a little bit.
Yes.
So, for example, it's essentially it's a poster again, but this time it's an invitation to it's the banner says "Hear and Heal through the beauty and power of music," and I agree with you that especially during COVID, for the people who aren't particularly affected, this is just a strange time. But as you say, there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of pain for a lot of people. And so in this poster, it's what you see is it's like in a sort of old forest. It's an illustration on what seems to be somebody, like a musician, sitting on his case of his, I guess it's a cello. He's playing in this sort of forest. He's illuminated from the top by a spotlight, which is very kind of, it could be the sun, but it's just a very soothing image. Essentially, it's a poster inviting people, which I really hope that whoever's listening to this will tune in to the show. Now, will the recording be available afterwards as well?
Yes, but I think there's nothing beats, then you get to hear the musicians tune in from globally and talk about why they have chosen that particular piece of music at this time.
Yeah.
You're right, Ren. I mean, this is a poster in the forest, a cellist there playing with an elk on the left-hand side and wolves on the right-hand side in behind, and then an owl on the tree, all listening to music. And this is what we are, I think Lumivoce is all about. It's about healing. It's about emotional connection. It's all about also for the people, but also for wildlife and the planet. So we want to bring these beautiful emotional connections, connect us back to nature, connect us with all living things, and connect with one another, and to heal together at this very, very difficult, strange time.
So I have a question for you. In terms of, we all in our lives get guided, directed, channeled in directions that we don't know at the time, but over time you look back and you can sort of make sense of it, right? So you said your father is a renowned composer, and clearly music and sound was part of your life just growing up. Now, can you think of a time, of a sort of a core memory where you were in the wild and there was something about the soundscape that really grabbed your soul, grabbed you by the heart, like really moved you?
Well, that is the whale experience that I told you about. The hear the sound of the whale and then see the mother and the calf very close by in Mexico. That is a soulful experience. But also, I have to say, to just see the iceberg in Alaska and see them breaking, okay? That's another sound you would never forget. I mean, if you are like me, a musician, you are tuned in to the sounds around you. And of course, I'm always, bothered by all the noise too in our lives.
Definitely in Hong Kong, yeah.
Yes. But when you are in the forest, when you are in that noiseless environment, but full of ambient, beautiful sound of nature and wildlife. You hear, I still remember at night when we were in Yellowstone, hear the wolves howl. Wow. And under the moonlight, and you see their silhouette. That is just something. Those are the kind of moments you would just never forget, because it will stay with you forever. And I am, as you can see, Ren, when it comes to music, when it comes to wildlife, I am just, I can talk all day long.
Well, I think what's inspiring is that you are inspired by it. You are moved by it. And I think when, for example, just now, here's what I find really kind of just impressive, but more than just the word impressive is such a small, cheap word, but it's in the sense of, okay, so in your experience, in your life, in who you are, with the training and the sophistication and the sort of the understanding of music and sound, we'll talk. And before, you just very easily began to sing. And one of the things that I find everybody should at least experience in their lives is to be in a room with a professional singer who kind of comes out and sings at full voice, like something classical or whatever. And it's where for example, I've seen a photo of you, and you're not a humongous person. Like you're not very big, but you have a big voice.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, do you have time to talk about vocal technique?
Yes, but listen, we're just talking. It's all good.
Well, sound production is, you have to be efficient. Many of the great singers are not necessarily big people. So the sound production, it really, if you have the proper technique, it comes from it with a proper breath support. The sound production is very efficient. You do not need a big person to have a big voice. And because it's all about the efficiency of sound production. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of vocal technique because it will be here all day. But what I do want to just say a word about this hear and heal. Hear as in listening, hear the sound, and to heal together, is that we have an incredible lined up of world-class musicians, many who are great award-winning musicians in the world. We have Brazilian pianist composer Catarina Dominici, we have soprano Susie, we have pianist Draskovic, who is originally from Serbia, now lives in the US. We have Kitty Chong and Julie Kwok from Hong Kong. And we have Paco from Spain. We have Jennifer, a violinist, award-winning violinist from US. And we also have a William Goodwin. Again, we have two incredible jazz musicians from New York, Chris
Wow.
and John. And we have one of a pianist of our time, really, Rebecca Pennies,
Mm-hmm.
who had over 6 decades that just incredible, beautiful playing. We have Justin and Hong Kong and myself. So
Hmm.
the lined up is incredible. I really hope that this is a great opportunity for anybody who wants to hear some special music. If I could, Ran, just play a little bit of just a few 10, 20 seconds of
Sure.
soundtrack from a pianist, Rebecca Pennies.
Great. That was great. Thank you.
Isn't that beautiful?
What advice would you give to somebody who wants to incorporate sound more into their life?
Oh,
In a healing sense. In the healing sense.
in a healing sense, there's so much. I mean, I don't want to give it away too much because we're going to announce a formal announcement of a Hong Kong native young artist who is, I mean, very inspiring. She's a popular pop singer songwriter, and she has recently signed a Sony contract, and she's going to be our ambassador starting
Oh.
here. But I'm not going to give it away. It's still a secret. She's also a sound healer, and she uses different methods. And we also have one of the violinists right now on our program. She has also started, Jennifer, a violinist. She used to be a concert master in Cincinnati Chamber Music group and other groups. She's an incredible violinist. She also has a sound healing for musicians to learn how to heal. My advice to a young person is to explore, basically explore with
Yes.
sound. We also have one of the winners for our Voices for the Planet for this year, Gloria, who had remixed all of our 3 soundtracks, and she has been doing some amazing, very, very creative, innovative sound mixes. Just when she's locked down. She's in Columbia University, studying music, but she's locked down. But because of the lockdown, she was able to experiment. My advice for young people, especially in the sound world, is go ahead and experiment. Don't let any traditional rules and ways of doing things stopping you from getting out of the box in terms of thinking. In fact, that's what my producer and that's what we're trying to do. Because if you think about it, every single melody that we did produce is taking a classical melody, but completely reinventing it by mixing with African sounds, or second one is a French melody mixed with South American sounds to feature Amazon rainforest. And we also mix wildlife sounds in it. The whole world of sound is so incredible, and it really, you can do so much with it. And of course, now these days, the digital technology, you can then, after you have experimented with the sound, you can then mix with the images to support your sound. So, the world, really, the sky is the limit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take us out with some of the music from one of your videos. And I just want to say thank you so much. This has been really soothing in a way. This has been quite soothing, and I feel healed even.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I hope people are listening. Let's inspire more people to get involved and to create art and for conservation.
So it's lumivoce.org, and it's the Hear and Heal online concert of people from Brazil, China, Germany, Serbia, Spain, UK, the US. Basically, you can stream it, and definitely worth checking out Lumivoce for sure.